So today we're going to go from this to this. Stay tuned. So here we'll find the worst one to work on. I think this one here. So we're going to start with this carb and give it the super clean treatment. Take a look at it here. Pretty grimy. Seems to be all complete, so that's why I picked this one. So the first thing we need to do is take it apart. So without further ado, we'll start the dismantling process. So this carb is from a 36 horsepower VW engine on early bugs and buses. Pretty simple carburetor. This one looks to be in really good shape underneath all the grime. I use these a lot. These are muffin tins from the dollar store. Work good for keeping your parts together. So I'll start with the linkage. Linkages are all either 11 millimeter or 14 millimeter. And that was loose. This is a choke up here. And that's the thing with these Volkswagen carburetors is when you choke it, not only does it choke the carburetor, but it also advances the throttle a little bit. It's kind of a nice feature. This here, you want to make sure you hold on to this. You don't want to yank this off and drive the butterfly into the carburetor. This nut here has a shoulder on it. So this can be tightened down and this can ride free. We'll replate the linkage. Take note, there's a thin shim between these two linkages. I think originally it was like kind of a wavy washer to give a little bit of tension. Right there. There's a return spring on there. Goes in here like this. Spring is behind here, and then this hooks on the linkage to bring it back. Sort of the choke cable clamps too. Replate this. So we'll take these jets and plugs out. This here's the main jet holder. Fiber washer on there. Yeah, this one's really clean inside. So this is actually a main jet holder, and this is the main jet that screws in there. It's a 117.5, which is pretty much all of these carburetors run that. So I just put this in a vise and unscrew that jet. Just like that. It just goes in there like that. Put a new fiber washer on it. So this will get clean. This here's they call it the fuel volume screw, I believe. Or air volume screw. That's just a needle and a spring. These usually come in the rebuild kits. Yeah, this one right there. So we'll put a new one of these in. This here is just a plug for the fuel pump circuit. Just a screw with a little fiber washer. We'll leave it like that for now. Make sure the fiber washer is in the rebuild kit. That's this side here. There's just a plug here. This again is just a screw with a fiber washer. This one's brass screw. So this one here is the pilot jet. And it's a really small jet there. So I usually use a bristle off a wire brush to kind of go through there, and this one's open. But that'll go in the ultrasonic cleaner. Now we'll start with the fuel pump or accelerator pump. This is a fragile piece here. This is just made of pot metal, like the case of the carburetor. So you want to be careful on unscrewing this. So what I'll do on that is we'll get a wrench on here to hold this throttle shaft as we unscrew that. So 6 millimeter It's even a little loose on there. And the 11 here. Break that free. Spray a little WD-40 on that. Actually, we'll put a drop of Croil. That should just work loose. There you go. That's a washer like that. And this piece here will slide after we take the accelerator pump cap off. This one doesn't look like it's ever been apart. All of these screws are perfect. They're not stripped out at all. You don't see that too often. So that there, spring inside there, that pushes the fuel pump diaphragm back. Here's the diaphragm that's very crispy. New one in the rebuild kit. Now this should just come out now. A little bit of wiggling. And there's that pot metal piece. Gotta be careful with that. You can replate all these pieces. This pin just drives out. There's no play at all in the throttle shaft, which is rare. It's actually a pretty good carburetor. We'll pull out this stud here quick. So this here, I just put two nuts on it, tighten them together. So snug those up and then use the bottom one to extract the stud. Oh, we're down to top cap. And And that's just 4 screws. This here's a part number tag. Just has the part number on it. These will sometimes have a wavy washer under here. This one doesn't. And the cap just comes off. Gasket. These carburetors are nice too because the float bowl, the pin is just sitting in there. It's not captured in 2 little prongs that like to break. So this just comes right out. Like that. These are often broken from being over tightened or just vibration over time ends up cracking this emulsion tube. So you got to be very careful with that. And if you're ever buying these, that's the first thing to look for. Even though it's hard to see with the cap on, open this up and look down there with a flashlight. Try to see if that's cracked. Because you can replace these, but they're very difficult. They're pressed in. The worst thing to do is over tighten them. That one looks good. These Venturis will come out. You can kind of tap them out from the inside, but you really don't need to take them out. They clean up along with the rest of the carb. And now there's this little jet that likes to strip out on you. But these have been coming out pretty good, so yeah, that's in there real easy. And that is another small little jet that's open. But again, just take brush wire and work it through there. And it's going in the ultrasonic cleaner with everything else, so it'll get cleaned up. Fiber washer. And just, you know, needle and seat. It's all one contained unit. I just clean this all, just let this all go in the cleaner. This is a cotter pin, you could take this off if you wanted to. Depends if you want to go for a super clean or an ultra clean. We're going to keep this to a super clean. So this here is on to the ultrasonic cleaner, step 1. Step 2. Step 1 is taking it apart. And we'll grab the jets we want to clean. This here, the accelerator pump cap, we'll clean that. So here we're over at the ultrasonic cleaner. And what I use is this here Zep heavy duty citrus degreaser. I use this because it's safe on aluminum. You got to be careful with this stuff. The purple power, the simple green can be a little harsh on aluminum. It'll turn it black if you're not. You got to be really careful. So these will just go in like this into the. There's a basket, and this is preheated pretty much all the way. This here in. And then what I use for small parts are, you can take like a stainless steel, actually like a screen for like a house window, and line your mesh basket. I've done that before if I'm doing a whole ton of small parts. Otherwise I buy these here. These are for like making tea. You go on Amazon, you can get 3 of them for $5. But they're great for holding the small parts. So all the little parts are going in. And then it contains them all in here. It's not that big a deal. It's like not like you can't find it. And that goes in. So that'll go in. I do 15 minutes and check it. So this here is after 15 minutes. I'll take a look at it. Doing pretty well. Just hit some of those spots there with a brush. What I like to use for this is these detailing brushes with the plastic bristles. Works pretty good for like a parts washer brush. So I'll just get in there and get all that gunk that's stuck down in there. Okay, so this has been about a half hour. It's been in the ultrasonic cleaner. Came out pretty good. So we'll take everything out. And take this stuff over to the bench. Okay, so now we got the parts back at the bench. This came out really good. Got the majority of the grime off of it. Still some white corrosion in the bottom of the bowl. Take a look at the small parts. These are some parts from another carb. Just wanted to clean those. So what we'll do now is, this is the secret weapon for the super clean, and that's aluminum brightener. I get that at Napa, and I mix it about 10 to 1 at least into a solution here. It's a real mild acid, and what it'll do is it'll take all this white corrosion, oxidation off of it. And if you're not sure, I've done a ton of these carbs, so I know how it reacts to this. But if you have a different carburetor, it might have a different zinc content in it. Just test it by putting some in the float bowl and take a look. But we'll let that go for about 2 minutes. This can go in here, and all your brass parts can go in there too. It really cleans the brass well. This is what it'll look like when it really starts working. It'll start bubbling up. So that's been about 2 minutes. You can always come back and add and do it again. It's basically taking off a layer. See, it will kind of turn a little black, but that rubs right off. So at this point, we'll take it out. And we need to get the brass pieces out. Those can go a little longer. The brass can take the acid better than the zinc pot metal. But then what we do is I've mixed up a new batch of degreaser. So we'll go back in there, back into the ultrasonic cleaner, and it'll take this black haze off. So it's back to the ultrasonic cleaner. So before the ultrasonic cleaner, we're just going to rinse it quick. Use the same brush. Give it a little bit of a brush. This is what you come up with. As you can see on here, there's a chalky film on there. Just a little bit of brass brush takes that right off. Alright, we're ready to put this back together. It's been blown dry and have all the parts laid out. And safety third, we'll put on some gloves and some safety glasses. I'm going to shoot through these small ports just to make sure they're all can visually see that they're open. And there's nothing worse than carburetor cleaner in the eye. That'll ruin your day in a hurry. Likes to bounce back when you're shooting through these little tiny openings. So first thing is the accelerator pump. That comes out of there. That's clear. There's a little tiny one right here. The vacuum. This is the vacuum line that goes to the distributor. That's clear. Everything should be clear. The ultrasonic cleaner does a great job of getting through all those small passages. Check the emulsion tube. That's good. This is the fuel inlet. That's clear. So we're looking good. So we'll start on this side. First thing here is, this is that vacuum fitting that goes to the distributor to advance the distributor. That just gets a copper washer. I just put a drop of oil on it. And that's an 11 millimeter. Snug it up. That's good. Then the pilot jet itself, we'll shoot through that. Make sure that's open. And that's good. Again, a little bit of oil. Snug that up. That doesn't get a gasket, that seats down. So we got that done. And then, so this here is just an access hole to the accelerator pump. It just gets a plug. So, little oil. Basically just a bolt, screw. Snug that up. That one's all set. This here comes in the kit. It's a mixture screw. think they call it volume control, and that gets a spring on it. And that'll get a drop of oil. This one I seat all the way down, and then back it off a turn and a half. That's usually a good starting spot. Now we'll do the top, new gasket. First we gotta put the float in. So the float, I put a little drop of oil on there. On these VW carbs, the pin just sits in a little channel and the top covers it. It's not pressed in. Those little prongs that like to break off. That goes on there, the gasket. You gotta put the this is a air jet of some sort. We call it air correction jet. This one, this is very thin pot metal that it's going into. So what I do is just a very small amount of Loctite. Kind of even wipe it off, just whatever's left in the thread. Just a little tiny bit. Whenever you buy these carburetors, you always want to look down in there at that to see if that's cracked. About half the time I find out that they're cracked when I buy used ones. So if you're buying on the internet, you definitely want them to take pictures of down there. You can see it when you open the choke. You want to look down in there. So up here is the needle and seat. It's all one unit. That just gets a little oil and a fiber gasket. I want to make sure it's the right size, that it sits up on that ridge. Actually, I'll try this one. Like that. And that's a 14 mil. Again, you just want to make sure that that fiber washer is sitting on the ledge. Just like that. Snug that up. And that's the needle and seat. There's a little pin that this top cap sits on. Replated screws. Also new wave washers. I'm going to screw these down in a crisscross pattern. Just kind of snug them up first. This one here, that's by the choke cable clamp. That's where that goes. That gets the part number tag, which you can't really read a little bit. That goes on there like that. Here we have the top done. This is another passageway that just gets a little plug, a little brass screw with a fiber washer. Put a drop of oil on that. Slug it down. So now for the accelerator pump. That's going to go on there like that. First thing you want to do is make sure you have your linkage installed. So now for the accelerator pump, it's going to go on there like that. You want to make sure we have this linkage installed correctly. It's going to go on there like this. This is how it's going to end up. So the first thing that goes in here is the spring. Then the new diaphragm out of the rebuild kit. And that goes this side down. It's square, so it can go in any way. And then we put the cap on. One screw started. And again, I kind of just tighten them down at a crisscross. It's all set. Make sure it's functioning. So this linkage here is going to go together like this here. First thing goes in is this. This is where the throttle cable connects to the barrel clamp. That goes down first. Then we put a small thin washer. Drop of oil on there. And this here is going to go on there like that. This screw runs against this linkage piece that you can adjust the idle. And then it gets a nut with a shoulder on it. I want to make sure this piece sits up on the shoulder. That's a 14 mil. We're just going to hold the other end. Snug this up. So this will ride independent on that shoulder. And then it gets a lock nut. Down on there, that's 11 millimeter. And up here, the choke gets a return spring. The straight spring sits against this ledge, and then it hooks onto this lever. Gives it a little bit of tension, so it's snapping it back. Gets snugged up, 11 mil. So lastly, we're going to put the main jet in. That sits in a carrier, and it just screws in here in the top there. And this gets a fiber washer that again sits on a shoulder. Put a little drop of oil on that. don't know if in the long run if that oil does anything or not, but can't hurt. So I just make sure that fiber washer sits on the shoulder. And that's a 14 millimeter. Looks like it's a little crooked. There, it's all set. You can put in the studs, mounting studs. These have been plated and then just put in some black chromate. That one's not wanting to go. We might have to run a tap. Oh, no, it's working. See if this one will play better on this side. Yep. It goes down, and then I have a new gasket that came with the gasket kit. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing.